I think in the past, it was a thing where it was like, oh, I'm going to spend all this time developing a 60-second video. I have a $10,000 budget to make it perfect, but that's no longer the case. I think in 2023, it's very much just you and your cell phone. You're recording, your editing is done on the app. It doesn't have to be well produced. It doesn't have to be over the top by any means. And that allows you to spend more time just putting out content. In the past, it was quality over quantity. And now 100% in 2023, it's all about quantity over quality. Get out as much as you can. I post 3 times a day on TikTok, 1 time a day on Instagram. And that's what works for me and my niche. But if you're running a business and you aren't posting 3 to 5 times a day, 7 days a week on TikTok, you're falling behind.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Word Made Digital. I'm your host, Joanna Fleur. And on this episode, we got the second episode of the year. We're talking to Zach Windahl. He's been on the podcast before. I don't know if you recognize his name, but he is the one who wrote the Bible study and led a company called The Brand Sunday. But we got him back on the podcast today because there's been some changes for him, and we're going to get into it. We're going to learn a lot from him about TikTok as well, his practical strategies for how he does it. He's going to break it down for us, how he produces so much content and has built quite a large following and influence on social media with this kind of system and structure. I think you're going to find it super helpful today. Can't wait to get this episode to you. Thanks so much, of course, to our sponsors who are making this possible. Compassion Canada, who are back again for another season, as well as the Canadian Bible Society, because they've got a new podcast called Scripture Untangled. More about them later. But as a reminder about Zach, as we said, he's all about how to break the internet with good news. And so we're talking to him today about good news in bad times. We're talking to him about how he breaks down his strategy for TikTok, how he gets so much content out. And he's a one-person team doing it. I think that's something that's going to be really helpful to us in this podcast. And hey, if you're listening to this audio, we would love for you to rate or subscribe or just rate and review this podcast. It helps more people find it. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button, and we'd love for you to comment, share, ask some questions, engage with the content here. We would love to make this a bit more interactive. So wherever you're checking it out, please do interact back and forth with us. It just makes us create better content for you and helps other people find it. All right, now here is the conversation with Zach Windahl. Zach Windahl, welcome back to Word Made Digital. I'm pumped to have you.
Thank you so much. It's so great to see you. I'm ecstatic to be here.
It was so fun to see you come out with another book, i.e. another excuse to talk, because a ton has gone on since we had you on the podcast previously. So maybe before we get ahead of ourselves, let's introduce you. Not everyone's listened to the first conversation that we had. Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Zach Windahl. I'm an author, speaker, business owner, all the things. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota with my wife, G, and our dog, Nyla, a little mini Bernedoodle. We got like a foot of snow the last day. So we are crammed into the house right now on lockdown.
How does the dog feel about the snow? My dog is not impressed.
Yeah, she loves it. She just wants to run in it, and all the snow gets stuck to her fur. And then mom and dad
fur
don't love it, but it is what it is.
Well, okay, when we last talked, I think the dog was already in your life. That's not a new thing, but there's been this big shift that you announced to do with the Brand Sunday. So can you tell us what has happened? And then I would love to take some time before we get into and probably it's related. We want to talk about this book, See the Good, that you just come out with. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's got to weave and interplay with the story of what's going on with your work, your business,
Yeah,
your life right now. What
absolutely.
has happened in the last couple of months?
Totally. So I spent the last 5 years building a business called the Brand Sunday. It revolved around a product called the Bible Study, which ended up helping like 400,000 people grow closer to God and understand the Bible better. And we
Mm-hmm.
really built this business around it that just developed products to help people grow in their faith. And we got a lot of attention for that business over the last few years, specifically just because we did things a little different. We focused all on social media. We focused on building it as an e-commerce brand versus a traditional brand. And we ended up winning Inc. 5000. We were number 63 fastest growing business in America. We were the number 4 fastest growing consumer product in America,
Wow.
which is like, that blows my mind. I wrote this, I wrote the first book in my parents' basement, and just to see like what it transformed into and how it helped so many people. And the fact that we got nationwide business recognition is pretty incredible to me.
Yeah.
And so that was announced in August. And during the same time, I was in conversation with a publisher regarding an acquisition of some of our products. And so it kind of all just came through around the same time. So we ended up selling the Bible study product suite to Baker Publishing. And they have a lot of sales channels that we didn't have access to.
Right.
And so we have an incredible partnership with them where we have our knowledge of e-commerce and social media, and they have their knowledge of traditional sales channels. And so being able to partner with somebody that we really believe can take it to another level was massive for us, and just really exciting to see where it's going to go in the future and what that holds.
Yeah. And I mean, was this all part of the master plan? Were you trying to build something to sell? Because that's what some people do. Like
Yeah,
when we talk about this, the entrepreneurial side of this, I have another friend who just announced yesterday the sale of his business.
yeah,
And he had always said, I don't want to sell. I want to keep control of
for
this. This is
sure.
my baby. And then the right thing came along and he did end up selling. So
Totally.
was that your plan? You were trying to build something
It's
to
funny,
attract those traditional publishers?
as like a young entrepreneur, you just figure things out as you go. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that that was an option
Huh.
until about a year ago. I was meeting with one of our mentors and somebody that really spoke into our business, and he's like, would you ever consider selling? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't from my perspective. Entrepreneurship was just starting a business and running it and going with it, and there wasn't like an exit strategy by any means. And so then I really got my eyes open to this whole other side of entrepreneurship, and I kind of fell in love with it. I think it's super cool to do, to be able to build something to the best of your ability. And I think there's a lot of people that are way smarter than I am with business. And so just being able to partner with somebody that can take it to another level is like, that just makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
so the process ends up being an acquisition most of the time.
Well, and I don't know if you find this, but there's stuff for everyone who like when you're starting a business, you're all the things.
Yeah.
You're the HR and the
Yeah,
marketing and the the management of the people and the sales team.
yeah,
Whatever. You're the accountant. Every part of the business is you.
for sure.
And then some of that's like great in the beginning, but it starts to grow beyond yourself. And
Yeah.
obviously this grew like quicker
Yeah,
than you could have expected it to. And
totally.
then there's this stuff that you start to do that you don't like, the thing that maybe, do you resonate with this? Like the thing that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
loved that got you started. Now you're
for
spending
sure.
so much time managing other stuff that has nothing to do with the thing that you loved.
Yes.
And like, do you feel like now you've been freed up to do the thing you love? Like to
Yeah.
focus on the part you're best at, maybe is another way of saying it.
I think early on, I had that understanding. I think in the first year that we started, because I was working a full-time job for the first 2 years of the business. And so I'm working 40, 50 hours a week for a company and then
Wow.
running this on the side. And we were paying 17 other people to run the business before I took a dollar for myself. And so we really built it up as this side hustle where it was like a full blown machine of people running it. And I did it that way because I wanted the safety net of a job at that point, and also is like, why not see how far somebody else can take it? Because there are so many people that I felt were better at a lot of these things than I was. I love developing products. I love creating things and being hands on with that, but I don't love answering emails and customer service and things like that. So it was like early on, it was like, let me just hire that out and put the money that we're making in the business directly back into it, and allow people that are really good and talented in those lanes to run with it. And so as we grew and grew, I hired a COO about 2 years ago that kind of took over all of the operations for me, which allowed me to just focus on product creation. And that was probably the greatest hire that I could have done, because it was like, okay, that really frees me up to focus on what I want to. And he crushed it and brought it to another level, and then worked with us through the acquisition.
And like, let's talk about that guy, because it's these key hires. Do you feel like, did you feel like you knew what you were doing? Or I mean, you're making this up as you go. Like, I mean, some of it's just looking back in hindsight, but,
Yeah.
um, a lot of people, you don't know what you're doing, and you end up
Yeah.
hiring the wrong people up
Yeah.
front.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
they maybe like I see a lot of people who say like, oh, we got set back like a year because we hired the
Yeah.
wrong, not necessarily that they were bad people, but the wrong kinds of people.
Sure.
And so, how did you, I
Yeah.
mean, was that you were getting advice, you lucked out, God was
Yeah.
with you? Like, I don't know, how do you characterize, how do you find these good
Yeah.
people?
I Everybody that I ever hired, I had a relationship with
Huh.
from sometime in the past, and so that meant hiring a lot of my friends or people that I just really trusted in and believed in. And so I was lucky enough and blessed enough to have that opportunity. And I think from there, it just came down to me having faith in them and allowing
Mm,
them to run with it. I'm a
yeah.
very hands-off boss. So I allow people to like, okay, I'm going to show you the vision of where we're going, and I'm going to let you figure out how we're going to get there. And then I'm going to trust that you do a good job and you think on my behalf. And I think I spent so much time with the people that I worked with and chose to hire, that they really understood the way that I think. And that was really intentional, because then when it came down to making decisions, they knew what I would do in the moment, and then they would
Yeah.
make that decision on my behalf.
Yeah, I love that. Because of course, like, nobody wants to be the micromanager who's like
Yeah.
telling everybody how to do their job,
Right.
but yeah, finding people who care and are like and passionate and
Yeah.
care about what you're doing as much as you do. But
Totally.
then like, even, in the behind the scenes world, after we last spoke, you sent me, and I've now been able to kind of like give away some of this stuff. Like, you
Yeah.
sent me this package of products, and like
Yeah.
the way it was packaged, the way it was branded,
Mm.
the way you were so generous,
Thank you.
it left a impression on me. And I can only imagine like what that would feel like if you're the boss who is working with people daily. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I understand your brand better in the ways
Yeah.
that you and I have interacted very briefly in
Yeah.
the few times we've talked. And so,
Totally.
like, there is a strength to that I think is really unique.
Thank you.
When you talk about this kind of like, uh, it's, I guess what I'm trying to ask you ultimately is about this reverse engineering of
Yeah.
your business plan.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
um, you know, what was done with foresight, and what is like looking back, oh yeah, that was a good decision. That led us to, ultimately being able to,
Yeah.
like, this, as you say, like one of the fastest growing products and companies
Yeah.
selling. Like, this is an unbelievable success story. And in some ways, of course, like, God is so involved in it,
Yeah.
and we want to give credit where credit's due. But
Yeah.
there's this way that you had to work and build this thing,
Yeah.
Was it all just like like making it up as you went? Like what was it, how did the,
Yeah.
let's talk about that reverse engineering.
Yeah, I love the concept of reverse engineering because I think it's so important. And I think more people need to understand that. It's like, okay, if you want to release a product or you want to write a book or you want to release a business, you need to break it down. Okay, if you want to release it in 6 months, what do you need to do in the next 3 months? And
Yeah.
then from there, what do you need to do every single week? And then
Hmm.
from there, what do you need to do every single day? And I think if people do that, they realize that hitting these end goals isn't that big and overwhelming as it comes across in the first place. And so I'm a big advocate on that. And so when it came to our business, honestly, I just didn't know where we were going to go and how big it could actually become. And so I tried a lot of stuff. I hire out a lot of people. I do a lot of marketing. I spend a lot of money and I fail a ton. But it's
Mm.
through that process that you learn where things do work. It's like in the industry, it's called like A/B testing. So you
Yeah.
see, you do multiple things, you see which one works, and then whichever one does work, you go all in on it. And so if we put out 20 ads on social media and 18 of them are a flop, but 2 of them do well, and we were going to spend $100,000 on ad spend, you're now going to take the money that you would have spent on the 18 bad ones and you just cipher it into the 2, and now you're 50,000 on each of those for the month, and they're going to grow. And so I really think we just look at what's performing in the moment and then just put all of our chips in those areas. And not a lot of people have that ability. The nice thing about e-commerce and the way that we've done things is that we're able to see the impact of our testing every single day. And so when you're working with a major organization, that's typically not the case. You might get your numbers every 3 months or
Right.
every 6 months. But for us, we were using a dashboard called Triple Whale, which literally just pulled in all of the content from every space that we were running ads, and we could see how they're performing in real time every single day. So it's like, man, okay, we're testing out all this stuff right now. Is it actually working? Well, yes or no, because we're getting the data on this dashboard. And I think by having that, you're able to test all day, every single day, and try a bunch of different stuff and then go all in on it. And so I think that approach for everything that I work on now is just how I'm going about things. Cause it's like, yeah, if I have 20 ideas of how to market something, but who knows if any of them are going to work, but you try them all. And when you find the one that does work, just move all of your attention to that and then replicate that 100 times. It's like my TikTok, for instance. We've grown my TikTok to like 175,000 in the last 11 months, or 275,000, sorry, in the last 11 months, because I found what works and then I replicate it every single day and it just continues to grow. And that's how you build a brand. You find what people in the industry are interested in and then just do the same thing 100 times over.
Yeah, I hear this, the way you're describing it is like obsession with data.
Yeah, for
Give
sure.
me like the facts are your friend. Like,
Totally.
oh, this didn't work. Like
Yeah.
it's not about looking at failure. It's about what you're getting information
Yeah.
from everything that's working or not working.
Yeah. And I
I'm
think
not hearing, yeah.
I
Sorry,
do
go
it
ahead.
to a fault, I think, because I'm very much like, okay, the numbers are the only thing that speak to me. And
Huh.
so, like, it's cute if we're trying a bunch of stuff, but at the end of the day, if we aren't seeing results, then you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
And as like savage as that may sound, it's just the way that you have to be in business a lot of the time. It's like, great, if you're trying to get a bunch of sales and it's not working, well, obviously you're doing something wrong there. And so you need to find what does work and then go all in on that. And that can be kind of cutthroat and it's not for everybody. And it may not be the most graceful way of doing things. But from my past experience with businesses and where I've worked and who my bosses were and how I was raised, it's like the only thing that speaks to me is results.
Hmm. Well, and in that, I think, particularly when we're talking about a Bible study product,
Yeah,
we're talking about a product that is to help people connect with God, to help people
totally.
understand scripture for themselves, and to want to get into this book that can feel super overwhelming. And
Yeah,
so I think there can be this hesitation in Christian content world to
yeah,
be this direct about what you're saying. It's like
yeah,
we're like so many products fail because like we're afraid to be good at it.
sure.
Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say?
totally. Yeah,
Um, and how have you, I don't know if you've heard feedback about that or
yeah,
how you look at that, because I think there are a lot of, whether it's a quote unquote product or it's a service or it's a, a, a Christian charitable initiative that's trying to do amazing stuff in the world.
yeah,
If you don't know how to talk about it,
yeah,
and no one will get involved,
yeah,
even if it's
for
the
sure.
most meaningful, life-changing thing. So how
Yeah,
have you wrestled with that, as like, because it can sound crass
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
for
Christian?
sure.
How do you kind of navigate that world in like a
Totally.
Christian product?
Yeah, yeah. And I think the only reason that I go into the details is because we're talking business.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not something that I would like if we were on a church podcast, it would be a completely different conversation. But I'm a business guy and I see things from a business perspective. And I think God calls us to be excellent in all that we do. And I think the Christian market often fails in that lane
Mm,
because we think we think things are going to succeed just because they're Christian and just because God placed it on your heart. But if you have an awful product, it's going to remain an awful product and people aren't going to buy it. And
yeah,
that's the truth of the matter is like there like you need to do things the right way and you need to make it sellable and you need to brand it properly and
yeah.
market properly and
Yeah,
have
or the
the right.
opposite. You have a
Yeah,
great product, but
yeah,
because you're afraid to use a business approach,
yeah,
nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's
totally.
going to get the like ministry
Yeah,
results from it. The
for
like
sure.
because you're too shy about
Yeah.
it.
And then people like give an excuse of, oh, well, maybe it's not God's time. Well, maybe you just didn't do it properly. Maybe
Yeah.
like you should have just like spent more time making it an incredible product instead of just a
Mm,
good product. And I think so often everybody has an idea for a product, everybody has an idea for a book or a song or whatever the case. But in reality, the product itself is a very minimal portion of the success of the product. It's 10-20% in my opinion.
mm.
I think so much of it has to do with how you brand it, what the message is, and how you get it out there. If you have a file on your computer, it's going to just remain a file on your computer unless other people see it. And so I think learning how to brand and market things properly and in a really good way is the only way to get the product out there. Otherwise,
Mm.
it's just going to remain a file on your computer.
Quick break from the conversation with Zach Windahl, because we're talking about what he's doing, of course, with what he's created with the Bible study and the Brand Sunday and getting content out there. But I want to talk to you about something else, because the Bible can be overwhelming, it can feel confusing, and maybe even hard to believe. But Scripture Untangled is a new podcast by the Canadian Bible Society, and they're bringing you interviews with culture leaders, leaders in ministry, Bible thinkers, artists, all to help you be inspired to dive into the Bible for yourself and understand it. You can listen for free and subscribe to Scripture Untangled wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this one. And you can also visit scriptureuntangled.ca for more info. Scripture Untangled is the podcast. So, like, let's talk about the social media side of things, because it's a huge topic. I think a lot of people listening feel kind of frustrated right now because the shifting sands, like obviously there's a huge shift in the last year, 2022 into 2023,
Yeah.
around like how social media works and what
Yeah.
works on social media.
Yeah,
People are
sure.
seeing like decreases in views, in engagement.
Yeah.
Specifically, Instagram seems to be a crapshoot.
Yeah. Totally.
Uh,
100%.
so you've grown a huge following. You talk about the TikTok thing as well. I mean, is that your primary kind of entry point for new customers? Like is social media where you're? I mean, you're doing ads and stuff like that, but is that where you're seeing sort of that building of trust
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know if you want to say, when you talk about the A/B testing, what's something that didn't work? What's something
Yeah.
that you felt like did work? I'd love to,
Sure.
it doesn't have to be even recent. Like it could be something from 2 years ago that you tried and worked or didn't work. Love
Yeah.
to hear about how you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as Christians, we need to do a better job at being at the forefront of culture and knowing
Mm,
what's working for people and what isn't. If we want to have an impact on people's lives, we need to be where they are. And I think often in the Christian space, people are afraid of that because they don't want to consume it, or they think if they put out a video on God it's going to do well because it's about God. But maybe you need to look at what's working in the marketplace and then adjust that to fit your demographic. And I think we need to learn how to niche down into certain areas
yeah.
and go all in on those. And is like what I was saying beforehand, is like putting your chips in areas that are working. I spend probably 10, 15 hours a week literally just studying TikTok and what's working for other people. I'll be on their pages, I'll break down their videos when they say certain things, what's making sense when they go live, when they're posting, and I think that's necessary if you want to be successful. You need to know what's working for other people, and you need to do a lot of studying. And I'm just a researcher type of guy, and I love studying and I love being on top of things. And I think if you learn how to be at the forefront of culture and see where things are shifting and see where things are moving, then you can tap in to it early on. I think in the Christian space, we do a thing where we grab onto things that are cool a year ago in pop culture, and we'll be like, oh yeah, well that design style was trendy 6 months ago, but
Yeah.
what's trending today? And I think there needs to be a shift there in just the church culture, design, pop culture space in general. Is okay, let's actually have a voice in these areas instead of being so behind the ball that it looks cheesy.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it is most of the time. And I think more people need to be talking about that, because it's like, why is it that people in pop culture look at us as super cheesy when we have the creator of the universe, the most creative being ever imaginable, the Holy Spirit living inside of us? We should be the most creative people out there. We should have the best movie scripts. We should have the most angelic music. We should have the most front of the line design available. But we aren't. We're seeing what worked a year ago and replicating it because it worked a
It
year
was
ago.
safe. It's
Because it's
safe.
safe, of course.
Yeah.
And I think people are afraid of failing and afraid of looking dumb. And I think once you learn to squash that and just do things because you are testing and trying it out, I think you're going to automatically be at the forefront of where culture is moving. And so when it comes to TikTok and everything, there is like, yeah, see what's working for other people, find a way to bring that into your niche, into your space, and then make it cool. Don't just do trending sounds. I think that was a thing. Like if you're at the forefront of TikTok and you know what's happening, you know where things are moving, you know that trending audio and sounds and stuff aren't what they were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But most people in the space are like, oh, that's the only way to grow. But it's not true anymore. It was the only way to grow. Now you need to understand that the focus is an educational, the focus is long form talking content. And knowing these shifts in the space is the only way to stay at the forefront of it.
And so for you as like the senior leader role, and you're the face, to what degree, if you could like this sounds like you are personally really involved, like you're spending
It's only me
time.
now. It's just me.
Okay. Because you sold the business.
Because I sold the business.
Okay. Right. Okay. This is interesting then. Because
Yeah.
that's like a lot of people who are thinking like, man, I don't have a team. Like
Yeah.
it is just me. Like
Same.
I don't have, I don't have, I think a lot of people are thinking like, that's nice for him because he's got like these guys he can bring in to do all his
Yeah.
videos and edits and be the researchers of TikTok. But what you're saying is just like the solo entrepreneur, the solo ministry leader, or
Yeah.
like you have that level of resource right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And so
100%.
you're making this a huge part of how you spend your work life.
Yeah. Because I think it's the most important place. I think if you're running a business, if you have a product, if you're trying to get something out there, you need to be focusing on being trendy or at least at the forefront of culture in those areas. So for instance, I have a book that came out called See the Good.
Yeah.
And my focus was, okay, how do I get more people to know about that book? And right now, most people spend hours and hours every single day on their phones. So I need to be where they're spending their time. And I need to be putting out as much content as possible. I think in the past, it was a thing where it was like, oh, I'm going to spend all this time developing a 60-second video. I have a $10,000 budget to make it perfect, but that's no longer the case. I think in 2023, it's very much just you and your cell phone. You're recording, your editing is done on the app. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be well produced. It doesn't have to be over the top by any means, and that allows you to spend more time just putting out content. In the past, it was quality over quantity. And now 100% in 2023, it's all about quantity over quality. Yeah. Get out as much as you can. I post 3 times a day on TikTok, 1 time a day on Instagram. And that's what works for me and my niche. But if you're running a business and you aren't posting 3 to 5 times a day, 7 days a week on TikTok, you're falling behind.
Right. And I mean, that just sounds for some people like that can feel super overwhelming. So obviously what you're talking about is like, make it low tech, make totally. Like the resistance, make less resistance for yourself, throw up your camera and just start talking into it about what you're doing, what you're passionate about, what you're talking about, teaching content. You're talking about, I know you do these like mini Bible studies, like you give like a Bible reflect, you're doing all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure, again, you're constantly getting that information, being obsessed about the data, what's working. And even in this, as we, I want to talk about this book, because I'm hearing, if people are paying attention, the undertones of this are in everything you're saying. See the good, finding grace, gratitude, and optimism in every day. I hear you speaking optimistically about social media platforms as an opportunity to reach people, to be a bleeding edge contributor to culture, to whether sell a product or offer an idea, hope, truth, love, of the Christian message. Like, I'm hearing that in how you talk. And actually, a lot of people that I interview on this podcast are pretty negative about social media. And there is lots to be negative about. But you're, by nature, again, like it's the Zach Windahl brand. You can't even help it. You're an optimistic person. And it's not optimism without the data.
Yeah.
So where does that come from in you? Let's talk about that story. Life isn't all rainbows and Skittles and sunshine and puppy dogs.
100%.
So like, tell us about that. Like you are able to, I think, maintain this like hopeful optimism in the midst of the reality of life not always being good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about it.
I think it's because I have a big picture view of life and reality and where we're at. I think it's so easy to be consuming the news and consuming content on social media and think that the world is falling apart. But in reality, if you look at the facts and you look at the last 20 years alone, the world has grown and is succeeding in ways that most people wouldn't even believe. And so just knowing that and understanding that is like, wow, we're really advancing as humanity. And I think a lot of the times it comes down to what people are consuming. So a lot of people are negative about social media because the people they follow on social media are negative people, and it's all about what you consume. And so if you put garbage in, garbage is going to come out. But if you put amazing things in, amazing things are going to come out. Philippians 4:8 is all about like whatever is true and beautiful and pure and worthy of praise. Paul says that we need to think about those things. And so it's all about filling our minds and our lives with those things. And I really believe that if you're able to do that and you're able to see kind of how God is moving in the world and to consume the good that's actually taking place, at the end, you're going to be much more hopeful and joy filled. And that's not to disregard the bad at all. I have an entire chapter in the book all about doubting your faith, all about grieving and knowing that, like, yeah, really bad things happen. Bad things happen to me. Bad things have happened to you. And that's the reality of life. And it's not to disregard those at all. It's to push into those and know that on the other side, there is joy and there is hope and God is still moving in your life. And just having that realization and that confidence that God is a good God, it can change your entire life and change your entire future.
Well, and it's almost what I'm hearing you say is this idea of like curating your life, like
Yeah,
curating the
1000%.
content, like the garbage in, garbage out.
For sure.
Just on a personal note, I became kind of hyper aware in 2022 of how much I'm a bit of a news junkie.
Yeah.
I've grown up in a house that loves, like my dad would like watch the BBC British European news every
Love it.
night at 6 o'clock or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I just grew up in a house full of news, but the reality is most news, what sells is the bad news. It's like
Yeah.
they're not telling you the good news story of, news is to tell you
For
all the
sure.
worst things that are happening in the world. And I became
Yeah.
aware of like, wow, like what I was curating in my life, I was starting the day with
Yeah.
the news
For sure.
on, and like it was bad news. It's like that was how I was starting my day. And it was like it affects how your whole day is gonna go.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you, even around like do you have some routines or rituals, things that you're doing in your everyday
Yeah.
that are to be more aware of what you're letting influence you?
Yeah, for sure. I call them holy habits, and I think everybody should adapt them into their lives in whatever way works best for you. So I see it as broken down into developing habits in the spiritual, mental, and physical space. So that might mean I spend 20 minutes reading a chapter from the Bible, spend 15 minutes in prayer. I read a few different devotionals in the morning. I'll spend a little bit of time journaling, and maybe over the course of an hour or so, I'm filling my mind with the word, with worship, with prayer, with devotionals, and letting my thoughts out as well. And then I spend time writing what I'm grateful for and the good things that are happening in my life and what I'm learning in the moment. And then I also make sure to take care of myself physically. So working out 4 to 5 times a week. I make sure that I eat clean 80% of the time. I still love a cheeseburger for sure, but just making sure that I'm like consuming stuff good 80% of the time. And if you do that, it's like, oh yeah, then you can go ham the other 20%, whatever you want. But I really believe that all three of those areas, mental, physical, and spiritual, they all play into each other. So if we want to love people well and we aren't taking care of ourselves, we aren't going to be able to the best of our ability. But if we feel good and we're filled up, mentally and physically, we're going to be able to love the people around us, be more aware, be more focused, be more consistent with just our daily habits and reaching out to the people around us. And I think if we're able to work on those holy habits in our lives, we're able to live out the Great Commission and love others much better. And I think a lot of people, like you were talking about consuming the news right away. And that's like the majority of people do that. I think people need to get more accustomed to using the mute feature on Instagram. I think if you're following somebody that makes you feel some type of way inside and you're like, man, every time I see their picture, they piss me off, or like that person always makes me negative, you can mute them. Like you don't need to follow them. You aren't going to hurt their feelings if you mute them. Like it's okay. And I think as adults, it's like we're still following people from high school 20 years ago on Facebook. And it's like, what? It doesn't matter if Jane cares about me following her still. She's not going to feel bad because I unfollowed her and we had PE class together. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's okay to make these changes and and I think if we're able to do that and we're able to maybe follow a few people that inspire us or follow a few good news sources, and we're able to see, man, there is more faith in humanity than I
Mm.
really thought there was. But that's a hard thing to do because we're all ingrained with what's called a negativity bias, where the majority of people have it deep in their DNA, where if 10 things happen in a day, 9 of them are really good and one of them is really bad, we think about the bad one. And
Yeah.
then throughout the day, it always snowballs to be more negativity, more and more and more. It's like you get cut off in traffic, then you spill coffee on your pants, and then you're late to work, and then a meeting doesn't go well, and then the person at the front desk says something with an attitude, and you aren't sure if they meant it to be an attitude. And it's like it just progresses all day long, which turns into like a quote unquote bad day for us. When in reality, there are 9 things that were great in our day. And if we learn to focus on those and not disregard the bad one, but realize like, man, 90% of my day was actually either neutral or awesome,
Mm.
it wasn't actually a bad day. And
Yeah.
it's just understanding that and having that big picture perspective and changing your the way that you view life. And if you're able to do that, man, it unlocks something in you and your life will be completely different.
I want to pause this conversation with Zach because he's not just talking about his own transformation in this episode, but he's also talking about transforming how you think about and approach social media and the work as a whole. How do we transform even our minds about what we do? But I think transformation can feel like a buzzword these days. And like, what does transformation even look like? Well, one of the places I think that transformation is so evident is in the stories of former Compassion sponsored children. That's graduates or alumni of the Compassion program who are now adults and are telling their stories of how sponsorship impacted them. Like Ria, who is originally from the Philippines, she has this impactful line in her story. Knowing someone actually cares for you, it changes you from the inside out. Ria's story is powerful and it highlights how being a sponsor built Christ-like confidence in her through her sponsor, and it empowered her to really take her future into her own hands and a future free from poverty. Today, she's passionate and an advocate for kids and sponsors, and is, of course, a sponsor herself of a child in the community where she grew up. It's an amazing story of how child sponsorship can be one to the next, each life transforming the next. So child sponsorship does transform lives. And if you're looking for a way to make that kind of impact with your life, with your money, with your time, with your resources, I want you to check out child sponsorship at compassion.ca/if only. The link is going to be down in the show notes. You can see more about Ria's story, more about people like her. Check it out, compassion.ca/if only. Okay, back to the conversation with Zach. Yeah, it's not like you're describing being naive.
Yeah.
You're not talking about naivete, like
Totally.
just ignore,
Yeah.
all this bad stuff. You are living with like a sober understanding of like
Yeah.
life is full. It's not just like, well, you're a Christian, everything's going to go well, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And we know that's not true. We don't
Yeah.
live that reality every day.
For sure.
But what you're talking about, isn't that so the case? Like
Yeah.
you can like you look at whether it was like a report card from when you were a kid or,
Yeah.
like you make a mistake on some grade 11th grade test.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, but like you still remember the wrong answer
For sure.
like because it like eats away at you, that one wrong
Yeah.
thing or like that one piece of criticism. It is, as you say, it is that human nature to look at that. And
Yeah.
so we have to be intentional. And that's what I'm hearing you describe.
Yeah.
I'm hearing like a lot of, if I may say, success that you've had is
Yeah.
coming from this optimistic view. Like you're looking at the data and you're
Yeah.
saying like, if on the business side, you said like 8 out of 10 of these things, they didn't work.
Yeah.
And
for
so
sure.
you can say like, oh, that means I'm no good at social media. Like my TikTok
Yeah.
sucks. It's not going anywhere. What a waste of time. Or you can say like, these two seem to be popping off.
Yeah.
So like,
Totally.
let's lean into that. Or,
For
in the
sure.
same, in like your you're not talking about ignoring the data
Yeah,
or
for sure.
ignoring the real stuff going on in your life.
And with social media, the entire framework and field changes every 3 to 6 months.
Mm,
So we can't be focused on what did work and then not trying new things and shifting. So if I post 21 times a week, 7 of those posts are usually like risks, or I'm trying something new because I want to see, okay, is that where my what I'm talking about is shifting to? I'm going to keep doing what is working, but I'm also going to be trying new things at the same time because I know that what's working now isn't going to work in 6 to 9 months. It's
yeah.
just the reality of it, and it's going to change. And so just always being aware of, okay, I'm going to test new stuff and see what people want. And I think as a creative or as an artist, we're very much in love with our product and what we think is cool and where our artistic nature is, but a lot of the times that doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And back in the day, like in the 90s, we called it like selling out because you're making what the masses want. But I think that's just poor business now. I think if you are
Yeah,
creating
it's called
something,
selling. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
sell something.
Yeah, right. If you have a product or you really believe that you have something and you want it to impact people's lives, you need to get their views on it. You need to get their feedback, and you need to give people what they want. And so if people want what you're talking about to be shifted a little bit from what you would typically like, if I were to make everything, I would post 1 time a day. It would be a deep dive on scripture, and it would be very like informational, into the
Intellectual,
intellectual,
academic. You
just
want to
because
dive
that's what
in.
I
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
consume. But
Yeah.
my audience doesn't want that. And so I post 3 times a day. 2 of them are devotionals that I just read, and one of them is something simple that they can sit with throughout the day, whether it's like 3 things to pray before they wake up, or if 3 Bible verses to focus on if they're anxious. And knowing that, like, okay, that's what my audience is, that's what they want, that's what performs well, I'm going to give them that. And it's not disregarding like where you're at, and you aren't like doing something wrong. You're literally just giving people what they
Yeah.
come to you for.
And like when you're doing that, like do you think about like um are you trying to sell in every TikTok video that you're making? Is it like every couple days, oh by the way, I've got this product? I mean, I understand that like your
Yeah.
world has shifted recently with the sale of your business,
Yeah.
but like are you like has what have you learned about that? Like because I think a
No.
lot of people they're using like everything they want, everything's a sales pitch.
Yeah, don't at all. Like I legit. So I posted a like sales TikTok yesterday, which was like, "Hey, this is my book. This is what it's about." I hadn't done that in 3 weeks.
Mm,
And I think the more value you can provide to somebody, they're going to come to you and they're going to realize that you're an author. They're going to realize your products later on. But if you can just provide value, 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 then when you do ask for a sale, they're going to feel like, man, they've given me so much value. I feel like
yeah.
I owe them a $15 purchase of their book.
Yeah.
And so literally January 5th of last year, I said, for the next 11 months until my book comes out, I'm going to post 3 to 5 times a day, no matter what happens. And I'm not even going to like mention products. And
Mm,
so I literally did that. And that's just how we grew and gained a following up until then. And then when the book came out, yeah, I was posting every day for a week about it just to let people know. And I was going live on TikTok for an hour every day, and getting a bunch of people to come in that way. And I was talking about it for sure, but I was doing it in a way that was more unique, and it wasn't in your face. Even with Instagram now is like there's smiley faces on my book. And so I post a scripture with the branding of the book, but it doesn't say "see the good" anywhere. It's just that. or I'll
Yeah.
post a poster that's like hung up in the city that has a phrase on it from the book, but I won't even say that it's from the book. And I think if you learn to put out content that people are going to enjoy, they're going to come to you to see what else you're about and what else you have out there. And then when you do release a product and you mention it in some social media channel, they're going to feel obligated to purchase from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's this kind of the way I talk about it is this idea of like copy versus content. Like
Yeah.
a lot of what we're doing is just copy. We just need to
Yeah.
like, as you say, add value, talk
Yeah.
about things that people care about, find out what people care about and talk
Yeah.
to them about these things that
Totally.
connect with them. And then the content is like every once in a while, yeah, by the way, there's this
Yeah.
product, there's this event we want you to come to, there's this thing we want you to whatever.
For
But
sure.
it's building that relationship.
It's
So
just good business. It's like
yeah.
like everybody that has a product should have some sort of lead generation or like some sort of freebie that they give. So if you have a product on your website, you should have like right away, hey, you can download this PDF, you can get a free book, whatever, if you enter your email.
Yeah.
And then they put their email into a flow where you get 10 to 12 emails that are also value. And then on the 12th one, you ask for the sale. And that's
Yeah.
literally just good marketing. And that's how everybody should be doing it.
And so let's talk just real practically about your workflow. When you're talking about releasing this much content, are you working on it every day? Like, are you like, before we hit up this call together, were you like working all morning on TikTok content? Are you like are you filming like, do you have like one day a week where you make all your content?
Yeah.
How does that just, because again, I'm thinking of you as like now on this side of selling the business, you're the one man company again.
Totally.
So how does that, as like a one man show,
Yeah.
how does that actually play out so
Yeah.
that you're not spending all of your time on TikTok?
And I think this is really good. I think people need to hear this because talking about posting 3 to 5 times a day is super overwhelming, but it really doesn't have to be. So it's figuring out how to make the video not take a lot of time to produce. And so every Monday I will shoot 14 of them and it takes me about an hour. And that includes editing. And so that's my 2 devotionals every day. So I read morning devotionals and I read evening devotionals. And so that's 14 right there. They take a minute each to shoot and
those devotionals, are you writing those in advance or are you getting those from like a
I'm
devotional?
literally just reading from a random book.
Yeah.
And that's just what people want.
Yeah.
And then it takes 2 minutes to edit each one of them and put it in my drafts. So right there, Monday, over the course of an hour and a half, I, no matter what, have 2 posts every single day, already good to go in my draft. So then on Tuesday morning, I just press post.
Yeah.
And then I know that I have 5 to 7 other videos that I'm going to create throughout the week. And so I know which type I'm going to shoot every day. So today is Thursday. I know that I have a 3 video. So it's like 3 things to pray when you're dealing with anxiety, whatever the case is. And it might take me 5 minutes to write it, and it'll take me 1 minute to shoot it and 2 minutes to edit it. And so now I'm good for the day. And so 14 on Monday, and then each day I shoot 1 typically. But the video might take me 10 minutes to create. But I'm going to spend time on the app, seeing what other people are doing, seeing what's working. And I'm going to be brainstorming a lot. But when it comes to actually creating it, it's going to take me 10 minutes a day. And so it's not that much. It's not over the top. Like even my Instagram posts, I will create them all on Monday for the entire week. And they might take me an hour max to do because I see everything as systems, and I see, okay, how can I have it set up where every Monday I post this, every Tuesday this, every Wednesday this. So now I know Monday morning, I know exactly what I'm going to post for the week. I just need to make it customized for that week. And so
are you like changing out? I mean, getting real practical. Are you changing outfits? Are you changing the back? Like, are you moving around the house to film in different locations?
No. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Lighting,
hear that, people. It doesn't matter.
Lighting and good audio is the best thing you could ever do. So I have 2 big lights that I have up like this.
Like soft boxes or something.
Soft boxes on each side of me. I have a mic that I bought for $10 on Amazon that goes into my phone. It doesn't have to be fancy at all. I think the lights cost me $60. The mic cost me 10. I have like a dongle that goes from the mic to my phone that costs $7 maybe.
Yeah.
And I have a tripod. And literally for under $100, you have a full setup right there.
Yeah,
and
so good.
Make sure your lighting is good. And that's all that matters. People aren't going to be like, oh, you wore the same shirt yesterday. No, what?
And they may not even see yesterday's content. That's part of
most of the time
part of the aha for people. Yeah. They may only see one out of every 20 things you post, the way 100%. It works. And so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And people can people are getting so hung up on like the content has to be perfect. The tech has to be better. And what you're saying is it's about consistency. It's about a system that can allow you to push out a ton of content with as little resistance as possible. Don't overcomplicate it. That's the game. Look
good,
now.
Sound good, have a great hook, and provide value, and understand your customer. Like, I think so often we're like, oh, well, my customer is all of these different types of people from the age of 20 to 60. No, you need to pick who your customer is. You need to give them a name. You need to create an avatar around them.
Yeah.
Give them their age, their gender, what they're interested in, who they are, what they do on the weekend. And then when you're creating content, you're creating it for that person. Yeah. And you aren't going to ever share that anywhere, but you're going to be thinking about them. Everything you create is going to be for them. So now it's going to be consistent. Yes, I have a lot of people that are 65 years old that read and consume my content and comment way more than the 26-year-olds. But when I'm creating content, I'm creating it for that 26-year-old female because I know that now everything I do is going to be consistent and it's going to be well-rounded.
Zach, it's so good. Write this book next.
Yeah.
And I want people to kind of like, at some level, just like watch the space, see what Zach is up to. I don't know what you can say about what you're building, planning, dreaming of now. If there's anything you can share, would love to hear it. But if not, just like, where do you want to point people to watch this space and see what you're up to next?
Totally. My main focus right now is see the good. So pushing this book, and I'm really going to go all in on speaking in the next couple of years. So I really want to speak at events and college campuses and businesses. And not necessarily, I mean, yes, churches if they would have me, but I want to focus on that see the good understanding of life and really shifting your perspective to see how God is moving and speak in those places. And then really just kind of going all in on social media. I'm starting to lead trips to Israel. So I'm doing a trip to Israel in March, which is going to be a blast. But mainly TikTok, Instagram. And if anybody wants me to come speak at their business or chapel service or anything.
And if people want to go to Israel with you, is that closed or?
No, it's open. We have I think 20 some spots left. So It's in March and we're going for 10 days and it's going to be insane.
Yeah. Amazing. So I went to Israel. If everyone should put it on their list, it's like a life experience. If you can get there, get there. If you can get there with Zach, get there with Zach.
For sure. And more info on that trip is on ZachWindahl.com.
Awesome. So. Hey, Zach, thanks so much. As always, you have been like really generous. You've shared kind of underneath the hood. I think it's inspiring. It's optimistic. It is. I love how you practice what you're writing about: grace, gratitude, optimism. You live it every day. Doesn't mean it's perfect. You're imperfectly living it every day. But I am so glad to get you in front of people if they haven't heard about you until now. I think you're doing something really unique in this space. And I think it's an encouragement to everyone. I think people are going to come off this podcast feeling inspired to go out there and post their TikToks 3-4 times a day. Let's go.
Yes.
So thanks so much for joining us again.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Zach, for that conversation. Next up on the podcast, next week we have Chelsea and Nick Hurst. Do you know them? Have you seen them? They are YouTubers, and more than that, they're YouTube famous. These are like 1 million+ subscribers. We're talking about what does it mean when like millions of people watch and lean in to your love story, to your wedding, and to your life. How do you manage influence? How do you steward that well when you're growing up on the internet? If it's not for you, it's for people in your life. So we'd love for you to share this episode around with people around you. And thanks, of course, to our sponsors, Compassion Canada, lifting children from poverty in Jesus' name, and the new podcast, Scripture Untangled by the Canadian Bible Society. Go check that out. Links for all that stuff is down in the show notes as well. If you are listening, I want you to go check out the YouTube version. If you're on the YouTube version, why don't you rate and review on the podcast version? Anything you can do to help get this into your ears and eyeballs more often, but of course also to other people. As you engage with the content, it sends it out to more people so they can find it. That's how the algorithms work, and we got to play the game. So we'd love if you could help us do that. It means a lot. If this helped you, share it with somebody else, tell somebody about it, give us a rate. All right, we'll see you this week on YouTube. We got tons of tutorials. We've got a back catalog now of tutorial content helping you communicate the best news in the world. We've got all kinds of podcasts for you to catch up on. If you haven't, go scroll through. If a name, a topic stands out to you, tap it, give it a listen. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week with some million sub YouTubers. Bye for now.